know, like just to break us in, start us off with like what were you doing before crypto?
For crypto, okay, like let's talk about 2015.
Okay.
All right, so 2015, I'm in physics class and I see there's this like morning news show on, and one of the morning news shows, right, on Sunday, and someone's holding up this barcode behind the anchor lady, and she like points at it and she says, "That's a Bitcoin address." And that was the first time I ever heard of Bitcoin, right? Okay. Bitcoin was probably around like, I don't know, $75, $80, right? So I go to physics class. I had a Saturday class or a Sunday class, whatever. Like after that, I go and I tell one of my buddies, and I'm like, dude, I don't know what this is, but it sounds cool. Like it's got bit in it, bit in the name, Bitcoin, whatever. Anyways, a few weeks go by and Bitcoin runs up, and this is my degen side coming out, right? Because I'm just talking about price right now. So Bitcoin runs up to like 500, and that was it. Ship sailed, right? Like Bitcoin just 5x. That trade's gone. But throughout, like between then and 2017, I just kind of kept a pulse on crypto. I was studying computer science. I've always just I like software development. I like coding, regardless of the domain. Anyways, bounced around between different startups when I finally graduated, but was speculating on crypto, as one does, right? And
was it just Bitcoin at the time?
It was Bitcoin and Ethereum.
Okay.
Yeah.
You weren't into any of the other coins?
Cardano.
I remember my first trade was Neo.
I do remember Neo.
Okay.
Yeah, I remember Neo. I remember VeChain, like the 2017 coins. Right? Yeah, it was like Ethereum, Bitcoin, and then Cardano, really.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cardano.
Yeah.
Still alive. Still kicking.
It's still alive. It's alive now.
One of the best, like, Cardano is so interesting to me because it's like one of the best communities, but it does nothing.
Yeah.
Like, I don't understand it.
Nobody uses it, but they're freaking smart. Like the builders behind Cardano.
They really are.
Yeah.
And the other thing is like their marketing is on point because every new person that comes into Cardano, like every single one of my friends who is new to crypto that comes into crypto is the first thing they say, like, "Oh, you own Cardano? What do you think of Cardano?"
Yep. Yeah, I mean, go do the experiment of like, take any normie, show them your Coinbase app, ask them which asset they would buy out of all. They're probably going to point at Cardano.
Yeah, Cardano is speculating.
Yeah, so like speculating on crypto, didn't really understand like how things work. What's a node, what's a validator client, what is all that? It's all magic to me. And then ended up making the jump around 2020 before DeFi summer kicked off. Started working at Parsec, which is basically a kind of like a Bloomberg terminal for DeFi. Yeah. Super smart guys. That's where I got the itch for MEV. Just working with Will and some of the guys there, like they taught me what MEV really was, and I was like, at the time I was like, oh, I'm kind of doing MEV on this Phantom chain.
Yeah.
Because I was like writing scripts and trying to make money off like on-chain degeneracy, right? And I was like, oh, actually, you know what? You know that meme of Leo like pointing at the screen? That was basically me.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And then so that was like right before crypto. That's how I got into crypto.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, let's back up a little bit actually, like because I think again going back to our conversation at the bar, that's like really fascinating. So like, what are you into, other than crypto?
A lot, actually. So crypto is like my life.
Yeah.
But it's my least favorite thing.
That's funny because I feel like I've heard that from multiple people. It's like crypto is all consuming once you're in it, but you might be passionate about some other things. So like for you, you're Solana's resident DJ at this point. Right.
Yeah.
So is music your favorite thing?
I think, I mean, so it's like, so I try to find activities that keep me mindful and keep me present. So for me, that's Jiu-Jitsu, like number one. I think Jiu-Jitsu is probably one of the best activities anyone can do. And then music is like the sort of like, I like to be creative. How am I going to be creative? How do I plug into that? Music's that way. I grew up playing this Kurdish instrument called the saz.
Okay.
Yeah, it's like a 3-string guitar. It's in the lute family.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So the Kurdish people are really good musicians, aren't they?
Yeah, so it's all like live music.
Yeah.
And it's all like no like music theory. It's all like by ear.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen a few performances by like the Kurdish people and just like sitting around like drumming, playing. I don't know what the instruments are called.
Yeah.
You just named one of them.
Yeah, saz. So that's one. Yeah.
But it's amazing. Like the music is amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's amazing to watch. Like you see these like ensembles of bands and like no music theory. It's like you got like a clarinet player and like you just like play on the spot. Like a guy plays a song.
Like jazz.
Yeah, exactly. Like jazz.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah.
So it's in your blood.
Yeah, so my dad played, my uncles played. So yeah, I mean, those are the things I like outside of crypto.
So you mentioned like creativity though. I've always wondered like, is engineering creative?
Yeah, so I'm one of those snobs that looks at like the source code that I put out. I know like maybe like people on my team probably don't feel that way, but it's like I look at it and I'm like, all right, that's like my piece of like artisanal craft that I did.
Yeah.
Right now, go review this like it's like amazing piece of work. It's not always the case, right? It's
exactly, because like I totally agree with you. I was thinking about this the other day actually. Do you know who Rick Rubin is? Okay,
yeah. I got to read the book.
You read the book?
No, I have to. I want
you
to.
haven't read his book yet.
Have you read it?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's okay. I mean, it's good.
Yeah, I like the guy.
Yeah, and I like Rick Rubin, and I like. But anyway, in some of his interviews, he's been talking about like what is creativity, obviously, and like who, like how anyone can be creative or whatever. And like I've always thought about that. Like creativity isn't necessarily just like painting or filmmaking, or it's not necessarily just the arts. It can be anything. Like it can just be an expression of yourself. And I was thinking about that with you because like when I was thinking about talking with you and doing this interview, like what were we going to talk about? You're a creative guy. You make music. I was wondering if like you also feel like a piece of you is going into this code or math. Like you're good at math, right?
I'm all right. Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, so I think like anything where you have an end state, but the path to that end state could be different.
Yes.
You can be creative all you want.
Yeah.
So programming's that way. But like on the flip side, there's a science to a lot of it. There's a science to making music, and you never want to lean too far into the science part because then it becomes robotic and you're kind of like going through the motions. So I feel like you need a balance of both in all things, like most things, right? Like there's a science to martial arts, but there's an art. It's called martial arts.
There's an art,
right?
Yeah. There's like creativity involved. And that's interesting. I love that. The other thing I really love about Rick Rubin, and this gets into like philosophy a little bit, but he talks about like putting everything you have into doing what you're doing because it is literally like a offering to God, right? In everything you do. And I think like if more people, this is kind of off topic, but it's just something I was thinking about over the last couple weeks. But I think if people like thought that way about everything they did, the world would be a much better place, and people would be much happier, right?
Dude, 100%. So my dad used to always tell me. So my dad was kind of a hard ass on me, like rightfully so. Love the guy, love you, Dad. But so he would. So he would always say, like his thing was always like, whatever you do it right. If you're mopping, if I ask you to like mop the kitchen, you better do it right. Otherwise, don't do it. Say I'm not going to do it. Whatever, like just rebel on that one. But so that's always stuck with me. It's like if I do something, I want to do it 100%. Right. Otherwise, I don't want to do it.
Yeah. That's funny. So I think we had similar upbringings.
Yeah.
Because it was for me is very similar. Is like if you're not going to do it right, don't do it at all.
Right.
Or anything worth doing is worth doing right the first time.
Right.
Type thing.
Yeah.
So I love the way that like creativity, like because personally, obviously, like I'm obsessed with like the creative process, right? So when it comes to like your process, whether it's music or what you do for Jito, like what is that process?
Yeah. So generally, I'm still improving on that process, right? But like generally, I try to think about what is the end state, and just start from there and work backwards from that. So like, let's talk about like, because I like music. Let's talk about music, right? So, okay, what is the track I want to produce? Okay, I don't know exactly what it is, but I know I want it to have a heavy kick drum. I want it to be bassy, and I want it to give this vibe of like a dirty underground rave, right? Yeah. All right, let's start there. Right, let's start there. Find like a reference track or something that I could kind of like use to get inspiration off of. Mm-hmm. So software, the same thing. It's like, what is the user requirement? What is the requirement of like this system,
Mm-hmm.
and then like build something that fulfills that requirement.
Mm-hmm.
And how you build it, that's where the creativity comes in.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's a great analogy.
Yeah.
That was awesome.
Yeah.
What is your favorite type of music? Well, first of all, like how'd you go from playing like a Kurdish instrument to like what do you call the music that you make?
Just house music, electronic music.
Okay,
Yeah.
so how'd you go from one to the other?
So I was always an outlier growing up. Like I was 12 years old and I know all these like Kurdish songs, all these Turkish songs. I know the lyrics, I can sing them. Like, you know, I'm a 12-year-old, right? Everybody's listening to Bow Wow or whatever at the time.
Yeah.
And then like in high school, everybody's listening to Drake. I just always felt like an outcast because I was like playing this folk music, this Kurdish music, right? And I grew up in the States. I was born in the States.
Yeah.
So that's just like a funny thing. How I transitioned from that was really, I just got lazy. I didn't want to really like play a physical instrument.
Yeah.
I still play, but it's just like hard, you know, it's just like, it's physically draining, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, I love electronic music. I love coding to electronic music. I think electronic music is probably like the most universal type of music. There's no lyrics. It's just straight beats, right? Just frequencies, right? Everybody likes it. So just really, it's been about 2 years, like recently. When I started Jito, it was like, I want to get my mind off things on the weekends, like something that's like kind of nerdy though. So like I'm into analog synthesizers, like I'm into the whole like production and like mixing, like the science behind all that. So like really the transition, the goal is to figure out how to bring in the Kurdish music into electronic.
Got it.
Yeah. And get that, like get the right balance there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That could be kind of cool.
Yeah.
Do you play shows right now?
Like DJ?
Yeah.
The MEV rave. I play every MEV rave. So like every MEV rave that's gonna happen from here on out.
Oh, why don't you play shows? You live in Miami, man.
Yeah, so here's the thing about playing shows. You have to like go out and party to network.
Got it.
And I just
You
don't
don't
have
have
time.
time.
Yeah, I can't party like
Yeah.
that. I like to party. I like a good party, but when I do, I'm not networking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I watched that interview with you before I flew here, and you were talking about being red pilled and the ideology, and this is something I'm always interested in with like crypto founders. Like first of all, can you talk about like what actually brought you into crypto, like the ideology behind it? And before you get into that, I'll just say that like I was also brought into crypto through that like kind of libertarian, free banking, you know, self-custody ideology. But I've been in crypto since like 2014, full-time since like 2018. And I haven't seen too much progress, if we're being honest. So I'm wondering, like, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, kind of similar to you is like, I think a lot of people like get into it because of the ideology and then just kind of stay because it's interesting from a technical perspective, whatever. But like firsthand, I would see my parents try to send money back home to Iraq. And that was a brutal process. Like it was hard, you know? So it was like really easy to click. It was like, okay, well, if you could just have someone's wallet address, send them money, then you solve that problem of like transferring money. Now you have the problem of merchants accepting that as money. And I think that's where like what you just alluded to is like, we're not there yet. We haven't fulfilled it because we still haven't, we're starting to get adoption on the like side of people accepting it as money, like retail accepting it as money, but still on the merchant side, it's like, there's still friction there.
Yeah.
But I think we especially are kind of blind to crypto's benefits in a first world country.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you know, like, I'm just curious, do you know people who actually like send money back home?
Yeah.
Using crypto?
Using crypto, I don't know. I do know like some friends that send money back to Asia using crypto, but it's still like it's still, what is it? Is that one service? There's a specific service that people go to the grocery store to.
Western Union.
Western Union. So I used Western Union to transfer money to Turkey for my instruments, and it was a pain in the ass. Yeah. Like charging me like $150. You have to like you write down a code and give it to the guy. If anyone ever has access, it's basically a private key. You're just like writing down a private key.
Yeah.
Right. Like that's crazy.
That is crazy.
Yeah.
Like I was telling you earlier, like I watched it firsthand in Asia, and like so I think you're right in that like in the first world we tend to use crypto to speculate.
But
In developing countries, they actually use crypto for its intended purposes. Much more. It's much more useful practically. So yeah.
You said Indonesia?
So I witnessed it firsthand from Hong Kong to the Philippines. That was a huge remittance channel.
Yeah.
And then from the States to Argentina.
Okay.
So like watching, I have friends in Argentina who have watched their balance, their bank accounts go to zero twice because in their lifetime, the central bank has just basically ripped off all their money. So this leads to another question I had for you is like, Solana at this point seems to be kind of like the meme coin chain.
Right.
Is that good or bad?
So I think it's good.
Okay.
So I think the meme coins are like basically internet culture.
Yeah.
I think it's just internet culture. We're dealing with the internet here. Like that's the fundamental like, highway that's being used here, right? So I think that's just like coming over from basically like the rails. We're using internet as the rails, so we're going to adopt some of that culture, and you attach some value to it, and now you have very like powerful memes, because now you can basically coordinate big communities, large communities across the world to do things because there's value attached to their memes now. So I do think it's good. I like memes. I like internet culture. Yeah. But so like but like the serious use case, right, of like I guess unbaking the bank or like is that even what we want to do, or do we want a system where it's more of a hybrid of like the legacy system and crypto? I don't think it's realistic to just like get rid of legacy systems. I think the way it goes is like you figure out a way to where legacy systems are built on top of crypto. So you have like that, like fintech happened, right? Like fintech was a thing where it was like Venmo and all these like traditional like TradFi, but like kind of like revamped TradFi businesses.
That's right.
They were built on legacy rails, but they like Venmo, you send money P2P basically.
Yeah.
From a user's perspective, it's like Bitcoin. You just send money to someone else. But I think we need crypto as the underlying rails there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Agreed. That's kind of how I see it going as well.
Yeah.
Like my personal belief is people don't need to know that they're using crypto.
Yeah.
It's just the underlying rail, and then you build something on top of it that everyone's used to.
Right.
Like the example that I always use is like email.
Right.
Who really knows how email works?
Right.
But everyone uses email.
Right.
So,
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I think like the end state, like if we succeed, that's what it should look like.
Yeah.
You don't know if you're using Solana, you're using this, whatever, like on the back end, it's using some rails and it's handling all the gas fees and all that.
It feels like you have like a positive outlook on where crypto's going. I might be jaded after all these years.
So I think the casino use case is also positive. I think if we built I think like at the end of all of this might be like a hot take, but at the end of all of this, if all we've built is this giant casino that anyone can participate in, I think that's pretty novel right there, just in and of itself.
I think that it is interesting that I have seen and I know people who have like lifted themselves up out of poverty and like moved themselves up the social strata just on crypto, right? And like just on meme coins. And I think that's pretty cool. Like in like gaming too, like I know like during COVID when the Philippines got hit really hard, Axie kind of saved the Philippines, right? And I think that was cool. Like I don't know if it's true, but I heard that like you could spend your SLP in 7-Elevens. So like people were making more money, like I said, people like were working in the hospitality industry and they're working at hotels. When all that shut down during COVID, they didn't have a job anymore. So they started playing Axie. A buddy of mine was like lending out his Axies to these people so they could play. They were making like $300 a day, which was way more than they were making it, working at the hotel. And then they would like buy groceries with SLP, right? Which is such a crazy thing. To think about, like you can game and like actually, support yourself and your family. Obviously, like that all kind of came crashing down.
Yeah.
But it was like, that is a positive, right? Right. Positive that came out of the crypto casino.
Right. What do you think are the negatives that come out of it?
So I think the negatives are like that definitely people get addicted to it. People risk it all, risk money they don't have. and they end up losing money. I was actually just watching that movie on the plane ride here, Dumb Money. It's about the GameStop story, right? And like it just made me so sad as I was watching it, because it's showing, it's showing like this class warfare, right? Like the haves and the have-nots, and the have-nots are, they buy into this ideology, like we need to hold the line because we're going to teach the haves a lesson, and they're risking it all because they're desperate. They have no money, so it's like, this guy made a bunch of money. I'm also going to make a bunch of money by putting my life savings into this stock. I'm going to hold it forever because we're going to teach the hedge funds a lesson, and they end up losing money because it's, it dumps, right? And it's just dangerous. So I think that could be a negative in the crypto space as well.
I mean, like you give people the option to basically lose it all.
Yeah.
Right.
Which honestly, I'm with you. I believe they should have that option.
Right.
Because we're all grown adults. We all make decisions. We all should have those freedoms.
Right. Because the other option is you build these walled gardens and you're like, oh no, you're too dumb to 100%. Make that choice. I'm smart enough to make that choice. Yeah. You're not allowed to play, but I can play. And that's basically what traditional rails are, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I totally agree with you. And it's like, I don't think that I should have the ability to shut down your right to choose. But I'm also torn because like, am I part of the problem in creating something that's going to allow you to stumble? I don't know.
No, I like, it is hard to see people lose their lives and livelihood over like Ponzi schemes, right? Like that happens.
That happens.
But then on the flip side, like Jito, airdrop, and change some people's lives in like some of these third world countries. Like I heard stories of, I don't know, it was like $40,000 airdrop to, actually it was funny, a guy in Vietnam had a food truck, I think it was Vietnam, it was a Mad Lads food truck.
Yeah.
I think it was him that got this airdrop, like big airdrop, basically like 3 years worth of money or whatever, 3-4 years. So it's cool to see things like that, right? Like for every like negative thing, there's like also
100%.
I remember DYDX had a big airdropped a house to one of my friends, basically.
Okay.
He never bought a house though. He still doesn't have one.
So that's the funny thing. The first story I ever heard of crypto, so like in 2013, a buddy of mine like comes into my coffee shop that I owned at the time, and he was like, "Oh, my buddy, he forgot he had this thing called a Bitcoin wallet, and he had like a little bit of money left over in it. He was just buying like ecstasy with it back in like 2010. He's like, he checked it today, he bought a house.
Nice.
Because he just like had so much like what he thought was like cents left over.
Yeah.
So that was like the first time that I was like, okay, well, I'm trying to make some money in this crypto thing. Should buy some Bitcoin.
Right. I love the stories where people got into crypto because of Silk Road.
Yeah. So could you maybe just start off with like a very high level, TLDR of what Jito does?
Yeah. I like to think of our system as bringing some ordering to like a chaotic
I like that.
system, right? Because you have this open network Solana. You have 2,000 validators, more than 2,000 validators across the world running it, and anyone can send in transactions.
Yeah.
And so people just spam transactions at it because transactions are basically free, like very cheap. And the way Solana is built, you're almost incentivized to spam it just because that's just how things are today, at least. So Jito tries to bring some ordering to that. So some way to say, hey, if what you want to execute some transaction, if you bid some amount, you have it's more deterministic for you to get into the block. And then on top of that, what Jito does is it redistributes all the bids that get submitted to Jito, you redistribute it back to users and validators, because ultimately there's 3-4 stakeholders that make a blockchain successful. It's like the users that use it, like me, you, like trading NFTs, whatever. The professional traders right? Like they need to, they make the chain successful by arbing the chain, which means like making sure like the price on chain is basically doesn't diverge too far from prices off chain, so from centralized exchanges. And the validators need to keep the network running. How do you incentivize validators to come in and run this network is they need to get paid. So with Jito, they make, I think last I checked, it was $3 to $5 million extra a month running Jito. So what that does is that incentivizes more validators to come onto the network because they're getting paid more using Jito. You have more validators securing the network.
Secures the network.
Right.
That's right.
So
I heard you use a good example one time about getting into a club.
Yeah. Where'd you hear that? I have used that. Where'd you hear that?
It was on one of the interviews you did.
Yeah. So
But it's a great example.
Yeah. I like this one nightclub specifically in Miami. It's a good one. So there's always a line, right? If you could just tip your way to get to the front of the line, then
of course you're gonna do
seems
it.
pretty efficient, right?
Yeah.
Because it's like, all right, I'm willing to wait here for the next 20 minutes and that's it. I'm willing to take that loss, but there's probably someone that's willing to tip everyone in front of them a few bucks to cut, and there's probably a market for that, right?
Yeah. Exactly.
So that's basically what I think MEV is like in the real world.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's a great understandable way to explain MEV. Yeah. And also I think that like people, there's like this negative connotation with like arbitrage, right?
Yeah.
But really it's necessary.
Yeah.
Like it is, because it keeps prices stable, right? Otherwise like price would get out of whack and then things go wrong. So
I did some arbitrage this morning actually flying here. So I have clear. Usually clear is shorter.
Yeah.
But I get there and clear was a longer line than the normal line. And all these people that don't do, obviously clearly not traders or arbitragers, right? They're all on the clear line, so I just went to the normal line.
Yeah.
And
arbitrage.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, everyday life.
You need people like me.
Honestly, I hate when that, like if we're just talking being real right now, I hate when that happens because I like pay for it.
Yeah.
And then the
you gotta arb it.
The regular line's shorter. I'm just like, dang it.
Yeah.
Let's go to the regular.
Yeah.
Kind of segueing from like what Jito is, it's interesting, like Jito has grown a lot, like over the last year. Like what were the numbers there? It was like last year, 10% of the network was running the Jito validator, right? And now what is it?
So we're close to 60. We're like 58, 59. I haven't checked.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Like within a year.
Yeah. So it's been amazing. The growth is awesome.
Is there pressure that comes with that?
I think it's more like there's some pressure. I think the team feels a relatively healthy bit of pressure, but it's like it's a good type of pressure that you need to feel. Like it's like, oh, this thing's working. So
it's real.
Yeah, it's real. Let's work harder and like make it better.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, like where would you like to see Solana go from here? What would you like to see happen?
Yeah, I mean, I think Solana was built. So the engineers at Solana are super smart. I've gotten to know them over the years, and they built this piece of software, and they're kind of like fixing the plane while they're flying, right? Because it's like they want to make upgrades to it, but you have all these computers around the world running at the same time, and you don't want to halt the network, right? Pushing out bad upgrades. But I think specifically, there's some big changes coming down the pipeline for Solana. Like 1.18, there's scheduler change that what that will essentially do is make it'll somewhat solve the spam problem.
Okay.
Like not fully, but it'll make spam not as incentivized. So scheduling transactions that go in a block. So where I want to see Solana is like there's a lot of tech debt that just comes with any software system. So things like the scheduler need to get fixed. There's a lot of talk about multidimensional fee markets. That's super interesting. That's like just a quick summary of that. Basically,
I was going to say this is a Midcurve podcast.
Yeah, I'm going to try to midcurve it.
Yeah, Midcurve is.
Yeah,
explain it to me like I'm 5. Yeah.
Right. So like on Ethereum, right, when you want to submit a transaction, you basically let's say there's a flag. Okay, there's a flag, like a physical flag. Whoever grabs that flag can run a transaction at that given point in time, and there's only one flag. Okay. If there's a lot of people standing in line for that flag gets very expensive to grab. Okay. On Solana, let's say there's 1,000 flags. Okay. Now your line of like 1,000 people, rather than it be 1,000 people waiting for one flag and that thing gets priced up really high, you have 1,000 people waiting for 1,000 flags, potentially. And now you have one person per flag and price can stay low. But during like NFT mints, the NFT flag might have 1,000 people and every other flag has like two people or whatever. In an ideal world, you want that NFT flag to be priced the highest relative to everything else, because you want to basically have some economic back pressure there. So that's a super interesting idea.
Wow.
Yeah. Was that Midcurve?
That was Midcurve, man. I passed the Midcurve test. I understood what you said.
Okay.
That actually, yeah. That
so the
was
flags are accounts.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like the state, the paralyzed state.
Yeah. Okay, that was actually super helpful. Okay, so actually I do have a question about that because I don't know much about Anza. Is that how you pronounce it? Anza?
That's a good question. Anza? I go Anza. I like Anza. Yeah.
I don't know. I'm American. I'm white, so I just say
Anza.
Yeah. But it's the team that it came out of Solana, right? Okay, so what is it? Okay, again, explain like I'm 5.
Yeah, I mean, from what I understand, it's just some of the core engineers came from labs, and from what I understand, I'm not speaking on their behalf. I think labs is focusing more on the Solana mobile phone.
Got it.
And Anza is going to focus more on which validator client.
Sorry to cut you off, but Solana Mobile just passed 100,000.
Which is badass.
Pre-order. That's crazy.
Yeah.
For like a phone that's not,
right,
Android or Apple.
Right.
That's insane.
And we're talking about mass adoption. I think the phone that's the key to mass. I saw a tweet today. I forget who posted it, but it was like, there's a poll on if you use your phone to buy NFTs, and it was overwhelmingly majority no. I never use my phone for crypto. I just don't.
Yeah.
And it's like, this is the only industry, like digital industry, where you
use your phone.
Everybody uses their laptops. Sure. And I think that's one of the reasons why we haven't seen mass adoption yet.
Yeah.
So Solana phone.
Okay, so let's just be real about this for a second. So I have the first Saga phone, but I loaded the wallet onto my laptop. So I still use my laptop to do it. I know that people were buying, hundreds of phones in expectation of getting their drop. Do you think that that's a big part of like what Solana Mobile 2 or whatever it's called? Is that what's happening?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's definitely some of that to it. I think phones are probably hard to get right the first iteration around, right? Like, I think that plays a part. I also just think general excitement around Solana has gone up, and it's like, all right, this could be a collector's item, right? Like, let me own this like physical piece of property.
That's true.
Yeah.
So like in my opinion, one of the biggest problems with Solana is just like the actual amount of liquidity on chain. Yeah. Is that still a problem? Has that increased? Have you seen that increase? And if so, like how do we get to the level of ETH where we have the same amount of flow?
Yeah, I mean, so things were rough. Like what was it, a year ago? Yeah. Things were super rough, and shouts out to all the teams that stuck around and like kept building, because there was no liquidity, no volume, but like Jito, a bunch of other teams. I'm not gonna name anyone because I love them all. Yeah. They stuck around and they kept building through all that. Liquidity's, I think, decent now. I think it could always be better. I don't know the exact numbers right now. I haven't looked at DeFi Llama lately, but I think it's getting better. I think we're seeing more professional market makers and professional traders come on to Solana using our system to trade. So those are good signs. Like a lot of people packed up and left Solana. Now we're seeing them come back, and we're seeing new faces.
Okay, so let's wrap it up here. Is there anything else that you want to talk about, or you want to leave the people, the mid-curvers, the message,
the Midcurve universe, right?
Yeah.
Be nice.
That's a great one.
Be kind.
That's a great message.
Right, we're all working towards the same common goal.
That's right.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
Be nice.
Be nice. I feel like we're gonna end it there.
Take off the unsure, take off decisions I lack. Take off the